Speaking of enjoying our spaces, let's move on to the Minimalist home tour for this week. This is number 34 in our series, and this is from my home. Notoriously, Bex and I live apart. We used to live states apart when we were, she was living in Montana, I was living here, but now we have a main house, and then there is a guest house or a back house. It's about 250 square feet. And this is the space where I live most of the time. The majority of the time. And it's rather stark. It's rather minimalist. I think it's sort of your aesthetic, but stripped down even slightly more. Part of that is, and I titled this photo, Balance is the Absence of Excess. Now, what is excess for me is a lower threshold than most people. I'm not prescribing this to anyone, but this is what my home looks like. And it's changed relatively recently. I just sold my desk to Professor Sean, who's going to give me some cash this afternoon, hopefully. But we have this guest house, and it has two functions. So like if Ryan comes up to Ojai and wants to spend a couple nights, then great. I have a guest house. You can sleep there. There's this dining table here. And I don't hang any art on the walls, but these sound panels sort of function as art. It's a rather echoey space, and I like to go in there and make phone calls or just work. And to do so, having these sound panels, to me, they're minimalist art in a way. And they look beautiful, but it's aggressively simple. And I think the details are especially important when you get down to this simple. So like a simple Nelson light that is there above the table, and these simple chairs from Beau Concept, or this tables from Design Within Reach. But then there's literally nothing else here in that picture. The other side of the room, we'll go to the other picture here, is just a bed and an end table and some lights, right? And some natural light. And that's quite literally everything that's in that space, except there is, if you're looking at this picture, it's on the left of this picture, there's like a small kitchen, or a giant kitchenette, I like to refer to it as. It's a mega kitchenette. But it has everything I need. Although I would argue that the kitchen probably has more than what I need in it, because I don't need a lot of excess storage and everything else. So I'll be simplifying that in the coming months and years as well to make it closer to my aesthetic. But stripping down to the essentials, the bones become the beauty of the space.
Yeah, and I noticed that you lined up the artwork with the top of the windowsill.
Yeah.
I assume that was intentional.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very nice.
That's the kind of stuff that I think about. Like, I always look for the architectural lines in a space and try to make things relate to one another, and that creates a lot of balance.
Yeah. Yeah. I think when we pay attention to these details, that's what I love about your Instagram account and your website. You have a love for the details.
Yeah.
The beauty is essential, but also finding the things that are functional and making sure they're beautiful. So you're combining the form and the function is so important. Quite often, here's what happens. We try to beautify our space with the things that have no function at all. That's why I like the sound panels in a space like this, is because to me, they're beautiful. They clean lines, just real simple, but they also have a function. They dampen the sound in that space.
Yeah.
However, quite often what we'll do is we will say, all right, I want some things that are beautiful in my space. Here's some artwork, here are some plants or whatever. And those things could be fine. But then the other things that are functional, they'll be ugly and cumbersome. And they're kind of like, they become clutter visually.
Yeah.
Even if I still use them every day, I don't feel great about using them because it doesn't match the things that make the room beautiful.
Yeah, so I feel like my background is in architecture, and I feel like there's this missed opportunity in terms of levels of design. You have urban planning, architecture, interior design, and then that's kind of where people stop. But where my mind continues is the opportunity of the inside of a drawer or a cabinet creating beautiful arrangements. And that's not for everybody, but that's where my joy lies. And you don't have to be rich to do this. I actually found minimalism when I was unemployed. A lot of it has to do with arrangement, but then also selecting the best possible thing that you can afford. You all talk about that a lot. That's why I love brands like Muji, because they do have these beautiful, affordable things. And I open up a drawer and I'm like, yes. And then I look up at my wall and I'm like, and why shouldn't your home be a sanctuary like that?
Yeah. I often think about my storage spaces like cabinets or above the laundry machine or whatever it is, that I want it if someone were to open it, that someone usually being me, I want it to be similar to a retail store. Not in the sense that I have a large inventory of things, but everything's facing a particular way.
Oh, yeah.
Because in retail, Ryan and I worked in retail for a really long time. It's all about the presentation. If you want a customer to feel welcomed in the store, you present things in a way that is aesthetically pleasing.
Oh, yeah.
Well, why don't I do that at home as well instead of just cramming a bunch of things into a cabinet?
Why do we think our home isn't important enough to take the time to do that?
When it's the most important.
It's the most important. Actually, whenever someone comes over to my space, the interiors of the closet are part of the home tour. I'm like, and look at our shared closet.
Wow.
And then everyone always goes, I don't wear half of my clothes. I bet I could get it down to that.
Yes. That's exactly it. And being in a 250 square foot space most of the time, which by the way, I'm not prescribing this to anyone. Bex and I are extreme introverts and we like having our distance, which makes our time together better. And we've been fortunate enough to be able to do that where we have it's a garage that's been converted into a 250 square foot back house. Part of that is I don't have the space to accumulate a bunch of things. And I still like to feel like there's open space there, right? And so having even fewer things gives me that feeling of open space, that freedom of open space. I feel freer when I own fewer things. I feel lighter when I subtract. Whenever I add, I start to add anxiety. I start to add stress. I add discontent. I add overwhelm. And so by removing just a few things, getting down what is essential, and then what actually adds value to my life. If it's not essential and it's not value adding, then it's junk and I want to get rid of it.
Yeah. Minima's mission statement is make what is necessary beautiful. So the necessary comes first and what remains beautiful.
Oh, that is so good.
Oh, man.
That just it just came out of my mouth one day when I was talking to somebody when I started my business and they were like, you need to trademark that.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah.
Did you enjoy this standalone Patreon highlight? If so, you can listen to full episodes of the Minimalist Private Podcast, available exclusively on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/theminimalists or click the link in the description. Your support keeps our podcast and YouTube channel 100% advertisement free.